What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and to be perfectly honest, I wasn't really sure what to call this because when it was first marketed and advertised, it was set up to be seemingly a sequel series, Criminal Minds Evolution. And to be honest, from the trailers that I saw, it did kind of feel like it was gonna be different. It was gonna maybe have a little bit more of a running storyline instead of being individualized things or episodes. So getting into it, from this first episode, I can kind of see how it does feel more like a running storyline. Now, granted, I still feel like there's going to be individual cases that they're solving, but it feels like the running storyline is going to be a lot more involved from what I'm seeing so far. Whereas in the original show, even if they had a running storyline, it was more so said in passing, hey, we're still looking into this. And then they go on and handle whatever the case was for that episode. This feels a lot more like, nope, it's part of the episode. It is part of these cases that they're going to be solving, more than likely. We'll see for sure. But yeah, it was originally called Criminal Minds Evolution. And even like it was popping up in the ads during my watching of NCIS on Paramount Plus, and it was called Criminal Minds Evolution. However, when I looked it up on Paramount Plus, when I looked it up on IMDb, just to look at the different cast members and stuff, it's listed as Criminal Minds Season 16 now. So I guess that's what I'm going to call it. I guess maybe they thought originally it was supposed to be like its separate thing, but then when they, produced it, when they released it, it was basically just a continuation of where things left off, because so far it is. From what little bit I remember of watching Criminal Minds Season 15, it does feel like it's just set a few years later. We've had some time off, we've had the teams separated, and now they're sort of coming back together for this big, epic, monumental case. So, yeah, I'm definitely excited to see more of that and see where this season's going to go. But so far, it definitely does feel same but different. A lot of these characters, they still feel like the same characters, honestly. It feels like everybody is where we left off with them for the most part. Obviously, there have been some big changes like for Rossi and stuff, but everybody else feels very natural, like they're just returning to these roles that they've played for years, and they're just coming back and stepping right back in the shoes. Outside of the fact that obviously they have clearly stepped up the budget, it does look a lot more cinematic, and also it does feel like they are not restricted by being on cable anymore, so they're more willing to use words like shit or don't like to drop the F-bomb on my channel, but they did drop it a couple times in this episode. Thankfully, it's not too over the top, because I feel like when you use words like that too much, it kind of just feels like your writing is lazy. Like, we're just going to use these words that are seen as no words in our society, things you shouldn't say unless you're an adult, just to really capture the attention because, oh yeah, we're so adult and we can say these words on Paramount Plus now. That's what I was worried was going to happen whenever it started off and Rossi was watching the thing and the guy said, holy shit, and Rossi repeated it. But thankfully they only used it in really not impactful scenes, but emotional scenes. Like when Rossi was getting really riled up at the crime scene, when the one guy got really caught off guard by the photos he was being shown. Those are the only two times that they dropped the F-bomb, and then shit was thrown around occasionally throughout the episode, but not too often. And I'm glad for that. It shows that they're not just throwing those in there, because we can. It's actually used to emphasize how intense things are in that moment. And I much prefer that rather than, I remember watching one show, I can't remember, or a movie actually, and I'm pretty sure it was a Jason Statham movie. I think it was called Homefront, and it felt like they just were throwing in the F word every single or every other line just because they could, just because, oh yeah, people like that word, right? And it felt like the dialogue and the writing was lazy because of that. So anyways, as far as the goriness of it, we didn't see a whole lot. I wasn't entirely sure if we were going to see a lot more because it feels like they're not as restricted, but it doesn't feel like they've upped it that much. But I'll be interested to see as we go along, are they going to start to bring out their A game? Because it's not really something that I am for or against, but it's just an idea that I had in my mind as they were starting to use a little bit more of those harsher words, that I sort of realized, oh yeah, they don't really have to hold back anymore because they're on TV. Now that it's on a streaming service, they can actually go a little bit more all out. So I wonder if we're going to see that. But as far as the story being set up so far, it's pretty interesting. I like what we're seeing. I like the setup for it. I will say, seeing Rossi in such a depressed and aggressive mood, it does make me a little sad because the original series did end with him in a really good position. And now finding out that not only did he lose his wife, but he's just been obsessing over this case. And we've seen him obsess before, but this feels a lot more like he's obsessing and he just has nothing else to do but obsess. And that's kind of sad. And I don't really like seeing Rossi in this position. Now, why his wife died, we still don't know. I'm kind of thinking because they've already mentioned, clearly this is still set in our world. So are they going to say it's because of the C word? Maybe. It worries me because I know when NCIS and Bull tackled the real world implications of everything that happened, it did just feel a little, especially looking back at it now in 2024, just like, my God, man, like this, I hate talking about it because it was the two most annoying years of my entire life because of how everybody was acting. So I know this came out, I want to say in 2021, maybe 2022. So I'm pretty sure it came out around that time when everything was happening and still at least fresh enough in everybody's mind. But I just hope it doesn't take up too much time throughout this season. But we'll see what they decide to do with it. But where everybody else is, I looked it up because I was curious what happened with like Daniel Henne and Matthew Gray Gubler, why they weren't involved. And apparently it was just scheduling conflicts for both of them this first season. And there was also no confirmation whether or not they're going to be in season 2. So I'm glad nothing has been confirmed about that yet, considering we don't technically have the second season of Evolution. But yeah, I knew neither of them were going to be in it, but I like the fact that we've got the whole team back. Even Garcia coming back in, it doesn't feel unnatural for her. It feels like something where she did try to put it aside. This feels like they've gone to her a couple of times, possibly to ask if she wanted to come back because the people who took over her job just don't do it as well, and they're also not in the office. And I don't honestly even know if she's going to go back to the office because it seemed like she did a pretty decent job of helping from her home. So it was a very funny scene, though, just seeing her interact with Luke again. That sort of, I don't even know how to describe it. It almost feels like a brother-sister relationship between the two of them, because where Penelope and Derek Morgan, where the two of them had kind of it wasn't a relationship, but it felt like there was like a mutual friendship there, that they both liked each other, not in a really romantic way, but there was kind of like a flirtatious friendship between the two of them where neither of them were like romantically interested in each other, but they had fun. They flirted with each other. And so when Luke came in, it was really funny to see how he did technically take Morgan's spot on the team, but for Garcia, it was almost like he couldn't take the spot of Morgan. He couldn't take the friendship that she had with him. So it's almost like she's gone the exact opposite direction, where she just sort of treats him like trash, but lovingly. It's not like she does it out of a mean-spiritedness or anything. There's just, it feels like a sibling relationship more than anything. So I enjoyed getting to see more of that, and I'm glad they kept that the same. But yeah, seeing how Garcia gets brought in, it feels realistic. It's not because she wants to go back to it. She really doesn't. But because this guy was using this site that she was supposed to use to keep everybody safe, it's a kind of an anti-Facebook, if you will, because she set it up to make it where people could mingle and not have to worry about, dealing with algorithms, seemingly dealing with awful people like you do on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all those different places. And yet a guy was still able to use that to track down 2 targets. For her, it's more of a, this is what she did to try to help people and it didn't work, so she's got to try to find a way to help again. And I don't know if it's going to be something where either she felt so good about helping out in this case, and that's going to keep her on the team and wanting to help again, or if there's going to be something else personal that connects to her that makes her want to come back and help the team. But I do know she is involved in both of these seasons of Evolution. So I'm just hoping they have a good reason why she comes back to help the team out full time, and not just oh yeah, I just helped you with this one thing. Now I can go back to my own life. Because it would feel kind of like the whole ending of the season for her, or at least the original series, will be a little bit negated and kind of undercut if she just suddenly, oh yeah, okay, I'm back after that one case that I helped out with. But we'll see what they decide to do with it. Seeing JJ and I think it's Will, I'm pretty sure, seeing their relationship, seeing her freak out about Henry kind of growing up and becoming, yeah, basically that feeling that a lot of parents get whenever their kids start to become a little bit older, they get their first girlfriends, boyfriends, anything like that. That feeling of, oh my God, they're growing up. They're not going to be kids soon. It was just funny to see her freak out about that, but I like the fact that they're still together and they seem happy. That was always a relationship that I really appreciated in the original show. And also seeing where Prentice is now, seeing how she's trying to do a lot more in the FBI since her promotion, but she understands the importance of the BAU, but she's kind of tied, hands are tied based on what she can do because of budget constraints and all of that. It is a very difficult situation for her, and I'm glad we're kind of seeing how the promotion was good for her, but it also has not helped in certain areas. So really am curious to see what they're going to do with her this season, and this one kind of smarmy dude that keeps coming in and basically trying to what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of hinder her from getting the team to do their jobs as efficiently as she thinks they could be doing it. In his mind, he's like, well, that doesn't necessarily make any financial sense. It would be better if you guys just sort of worked in this one area. And it's that typical political BS that we've seen a lot of people try to do in the past with the team. So, but yeah, I think it's a really good setup though, seeing this guy burying the cases and the fact that this kid found it. I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't know if this means he's maybe he's using these for his own deeds, or maybe he is basically burying these for people to find and use in their own crimes. I don't know. I don't really know what is going to happen here and why he's doing this, but I'm curious. And I think that's one of the things that the show did in the past. One of the things that Criminal Minds did before is there's this level of intrigue. It's not necessarily always a mystery who the villain is, but most of the time it's a mystery why they're doing what they're doing. And that is where the intrigue of this show comes from. And so far, they've done a really good job setting it up to make me want to know more. So it's a great start. As the episode says, it's just getting started, and I think it is a good, solid foundation to build this new show off of. So we'll see how long this goes. Again, obviously they have a second season of this new part of the series, and from what I've seen so far, I'm excited. So with that being said, on to the next episode. I'll see you there in a minute. And now episode 2, Sicarius. So we finally get a little bit more information about this whole organization of serial killers, I guess, which is pretty surprising. I was not thinking that that's where this was going, but it's a pretty solid narrative for the season. It makes it exciting to see the team go up against this large network. And this guy, having buried all these cases. Of course, they do find out about it in this episode, and they do also locate all of the cases. So it's kind of going to be one of those, does that mean we're just going to focus on catching him now, or are we going to focus on tracking down a couple of those cases and maybe taking down the guys that are supposed to be receiving them and using them? I don't know for sure. I feel like more than likely, I'm pretty sure this is a 10 episode season. So it might be like the first 5 episodes are focused on trying to get more information about him and maybe trying to capture one of the guys that is working with him and trying to get them before they kill themselves, because that is ultimately his biggest failsafe, is they don't let themselves be captured. So that's going to be interesting to see how long is that going to go before they finally find out who this guy is and they can start trying to find him and take him down. But it's a really interesting setup for this season as a whole. And we're seeing a lot about this guy. And I kind of like that. because sometimes, the unsubs are just shrouded in mystery. We don't really see much about them. We just see kind of what they're doing, but we're seeing a lot more of his process. And we already know a little bit about what he's, I guess, trying to do. But I don't really understand the motive just yet. They are bringing up, unfortunately, the pandemic and the shutdown a lot, which is just not fun to hear about, but they are tying it into the motive, unfortunately, or at least seemingly his motive. Just talking about how being unable to go and satiate their need to kill has driven some sociopaths, some psychopaths to kind of, I guess, change how they do things, to branch out a little bit. So the fact that this guy decided, I'm going to bury some cases and try to train serial killers and how to do what they do, it's very interesting. And I would love to learn more about how this came to be and why this guy did this. But yeah, we see, at the end, he's clearly living in his own home with a wife and kids. So clearly he's hiding this side of himself pretty well if he's managed to keep up a family in spite of what he's doing. But it's a really fun setup. The one thing that I will say that I'm not really all that interested in, that's also taking up a good chunk of time, is the whole side plot of the deputy director trying to shut down or downsize the BAU. It's just not that interesting. We've seen this before. I feel like this even happened previously where they weren't necessarily trying to get rid of the BAU, but they were trying to essentially get rid of the team, our main characters, and replace them with another team that's going to, I guess, follow the rules a bit better. So it just kind of feels like a very similar story to that. And what it feels like is they're trying to add a ticking clock narrative to the entire season. Like, we've got to solve this case. We've got to break all this down or else we're done. We're out of a job. And I feel like you don't really need that. Just stopping these guys, first of all, before they kill more people. And if it's not necessarily a ticking clock, but more so we got to save our jobs, I feel like trying to save lives, and if they don't, then more people are going to die. I feel like that is enough motivation. You don't have to throw in the added possibility of, well, if you fail, you also lose your jobs. Is that really that big a deal, considering these people are just going to go on killing if you don't stop them? Like, literally, let's weigh the options. Losing your job, more people die. I think this one's the bigger deal, and yet we're making this kind of the other reason why we need to stop this group. And I just don't feel like it's needed. It feels like an added on, tacked on narrative that is just kind of pointless. But outside of that, we're seeing a little bit more about the team. We're seeing these characters digging into their personal lives a little bit more. So far, all of it's fine. I think the best one is Penelope in this episode, because it starts off where Rossi is kind of frustrated with her, but she's also frustrated with him because he's trying to pull her back in. But ultimately, I like the fact that she sort of realizes, after whoever sent her the information about the cases, as soon as that person basically tells her, people are going to die now because you didn't help. You didn't do what you needed to do. I don't know who that person's going to be, and it is kind of interesting. I almost wonder if it's somebody who pretended to be a serial killer to get on the inside, like he heard about this group, this network somehow, and so he's undercover pretending to be a serial killer to get more info. But I like the fact that that's what it takes, because for her, she talks about at the beginning of this how she's so much happier now. She is in a good headspace. It's kind of that, I don't know what to call it. It's like the new type of hippie, I'm in a great mental place right now, and I'm so calm, and I meditate. It's all about my personal mental health. And that's great. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but she has the ability to help the team stop these evil people, to keep people alive. At some point, you do have to make sacrifices to save lives. And so I'm kind of glad that she sort of realizes that at the end. And it does come to sacrifice. She does have to go back to something that she does not like to do. As she said, she loves the team. She loves seeing them. She loves the technology of it all, but she doesn't like the cases. She doesn't like having to experience this awful stuff day in, day out. But she has to. If people are to be saved, if lives are to be saved, she has to make that sacrifice. And I'm glad she does. And I'm glad it's her decision and not somebody basically saying, hey, we absolutely need you. I mean, Rossi even says, she asked if they could do it without her. He doesn't say, no, they can't. He says, I don't know. Because he really doesn't. There's a chance that they might be able to. But with her, they can definitely do the job a lot better than the two like work from home people that they had already. So I thought that was a really good story. Rossi, we see a little bit happier in this episode. I guess maybe that moment at the end of last episode sort of brought him back to the light a little bit. Prentice, obviously dealing with stuff still. Tara apparently has a girlfriend now. Luke, we've still not seen much of. And then JJ, we see apparently she and Will are maybe going through a little bit of a rough patch right now. So hopefully something that they can work through, because like I said in the last episode review, I really like them as a couple. Like, they were probably my favorite couple in Criminal Minds. So I really hope that they do manage to stick together, because it'd be really disappointing and sad if they split up during this sequel series. It would be kind of like watching the Star Wars sequels, where sometimes you think about how the main characters from the original trilogy, think about how their stories ended in the sequel trilogy, and you almost kind of just want to go, you know what? No, their stories ended. Stories ended in episodes 4 through 6. Like that's where their stories end. The same thing happens here with like JJ and Will. If they end up splitting up in this sequel series, basically, I'm probably just gonna be like, you know what? Their story ended back in Criminal Minds. This is not canon to me anymore. But anyways, I think that's about it for this episode, though. I'm really enjoying it so far. It's got my interest again outside of the bureaucratic part of everything. But I think it is a solid start, and it's got me interested to see what this whole network is going to be about, because it seems very extensive. He's got cases in all these different states across the country. That's a good setup. So I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. See where it goes from here. On to episode 3. I'll see you there. And now episode 3, Moose. This is really good. It's got my interest right now. I am fully focused in. I'm paying attention to what's going on because it's really gripped me so far. And I think the biggest reason why is because I'm so used to Criminal Minds just sort of being a turn your brain off, watch it, see some fun bad guys, see some interesting psychological ways of thinking about, thinking from the other side. What are these killers thinking about? It's gone from that to now we actually have a story. We have an interesting narrative that they're crafting that has got me engaged. Because we're really seeing not just the team trying to piece together everything and figure out what this guy is doing, but we're also seeing what he's up to. We're seeing his life and what he's trying to do and how he's kind of hitting the rocks in his own personal life, which I almost kind of wonder if we're going to find out that maybe he wasn't a serial killer before. Maybe he wasn't, psychotic before. But it's almost like everything that happened after the pandemic and shutdowns and everything, and him dealing with financial trouble, dealing with more asshole people, because let's be perfectly honest, the shutdown changed a lot of people. There were a lot of people that I think forgot how to live, how to interact with people, because the only interactions that they had were online. They weren't talking to people in everyday life. They weren't interacting with people in everyday life. They were interacting over the internet, behind keyboards, behind phones, where anything you say, you don't have to see the consequences. You don't have to look at the person and say it to their face. You can hide behind your little keyboard and say whatever. And I think because of that, a lot of people kind of turned into either assholes or people who just don't really care anymore. Like there's couple of extremes, people who just, again, they got all this confidence because they didn't have to look at anybody to their face and say stuff, and so it kind of built up their confidence to the point where now they think they can act the same way behind or out in real life as they do behind a keyboard. And then some people, because they lost that social connection, they didn't talk to people face to face, they started seeing people as people, and they started seeing them as just like, again, you're not seeing their face as you're talking to them. You're not seeing their reactions. You're not seeing the consequences of what you're saying. And so it's almost like they get back out into society and they don't really know how to function. They don't know how to live normally anymore. But I don't know if that's where they're going to go with it. I mean, I know he seems to be kind of one of acting like that, acting like somebody who, again, he got all this confidence because he didn't have to talk to people face to face for a long time, and he could say whatever he wanted behind a keyboard. And so now he's just saying all of it out in real life. I don't know if that's what they're going for, but if so, it does sort of make me wonder if they're showing that maybe I can't remember his name now. Elias. I'm not sure if they're showing that is what happened to him. Like maybe he was a normal person. Maybe he was. Although, actually, that being said, they did find the storage locker, which apparently was there for a long time. So it feels like he has always been a serial killer. Maybe he was just better at hiding it. And again, now he's kind of branched out and teaching other people how to do it. But I don't know. It's interesting because it almost feels like he's hitting a rough patch, not just in his own personal life, but also in his serial killer life. You know, where he has tried to reach out and teach people this stuff, but they're not paying attention. They're not listening to him. So it's been really interesting to see sort of his decline, not just, again, in his personal life with his family, his finances, his job, all of that, but also as a serial killer. It feels like he cannot do what he normally did. He cannot do what he did before the shutdown, because I think that's what has been implied, is that he was doing this for a while and was doing it without getting caught, was keeping it secret. And now he's sort of expanded because he is not able to do it as much. But in doing so, he's also reached out to people who are not following his rules and are getting caught and are in danger of exposing the network. So yeah, I think it's a pretty interesting setup in that sense. The other interesting thing to me, though, is this whole informant deal, this Tyler guy. Because I did say I wondered if maybe the person who was giving information to Garcia was a part of the network, but they weren't actually a serial killer. They just managed to infiltrate it somehow. And I do wonder if we'll find out how he managed to do that, because it kind of feels like that would be hard to get into. So the fact that he managed to get in there, get all this information, deliver it to Garcia as well, I think it shows pretty intelligent guy. So I kind of wonder if he's going to be useful to the team going forward. But I was a little proud of myself that I managed to call the fact that it was somebody on the inside that was kind of working as a mole, as an informant. And the fact that we figured it out in the next episode was kind of surprising, because it is only episode 3 of 10. I'm surprised that this information is coming out so soon. I kind of figured it would be something that maybe we'd save about halfway through the season. But we found out now his plan, unfortunately, was foiled because he didn't tell the BAU anything about his plan, which I find kind of weird. You know, if you plan to get Sicarius caught on camera in this area, why not say something? You know, why not, I don't know, you sent some message to Garcia already. Why not send her another one? Why not be like, hey, I'm about to infiltrate this. Don't take him down. Don't take this guy down. You know, give him a minute. And then it could have been more of a wrestling match with Deputy Director Bailey. Basically, no, we've got this information. He helped us before. Trust us, because we trust this guy. And then that could have been kind of the back and forth of Bailey wanting the domestic terrorism group to take him down, and the team saying, no, we need to give him more time. And then, of course, that's when Bailey could step in and do something. And it wouldn't be the team's fault. It would be domestic terrorism and Bailey's fault. But that's just, you know, my own, I guess, personal narrative that formed in my head as I was watching it, that I feel like would have made a bit more sense. But then again, I don't know what they're planning on doing with Tyler from here on out. So there's a chance that maybe the team foiling his plan, even though he didn't tell them what the plan was, maybe could cause that bit of mistrust, even though it seemed like he did want to help them. So I think it's it's an interesting story going forward though, and it's one that I'm excited to see what they do with it. But yeah, I mean, everything to do with Bailey is still very annoying. I really hope it's not going to be like this every single episode, because I'm already sick of it. After 3 episodes, I'm already sick of this back and forth of him just coming in all cocky and like, yeah, I can fire you if I want to. Ooh, you better not step on my toes. Ooh, you better do what I tell you to do. It's just already annoying and boring to me. Because again, it's just bureaucratic, like Rossi said, bureaucratic bullshit. And it is. Like, it's so stupid. I don't want to see anything about that because I don't care. You know, if it's somehow connected to what Sicarius is doing, maybe that'll be interesting, but I don't see how it could be. You know, this feels like it's just trying to amp up the pressure on the team to catch this guy, because if they don't, they're going to lose their jobs. Again, I think the added pressure of there's a lot of serial killers out there that need to be stopped, I think that's already enough pressure on the team. You don't need to throw in this forced conflict, basically. It just feels unnecessary to me, and it's a little frustrating that we're spending so much time on it in this episode. Like, it was not a majority of the episode, but it was a large chunk of it. I would say a third of it was taken up with Bailey basically doing his bureaucratic stuff, talking down to the team like he's better than them. I just got sick of it real fast. So I guess we'll see what they decide to do with it. Maybe they do have something interesting in the works, but for now, it just feels kind of pointless. And I don't like any scene that happens with it right at the moment. The final thing is just the stuff again with the characters. This one was mainly focused on Tara and her girlfriend from the DOJ. And nothing really interesting happening there. You know, it's just them talking about maybe getting a place. Tara doesn't seem to want to, but then by the end of it, she does. I don't know. I honestly, most of the character development, the character stories, even in the original show, there were only a couple. There were those few episodes where it felt genuine, and it was that nice moment of levity that we needed, that kind of took us out of the mire and the dark stuff. So, I mean, it's welcome. It's just most of the time, it's not my favorite stuff in the show. Outside of, I would say, probably JJ and Will, because again, I did like them as a couple, and I did like seeing them grow together and just kind of understand the other is going to do what they're going to do, and they kind of have to accept that, and they do accept that for each other. So I like that, but outside of that, I mean, I don't really remember. You know, Reed had some sad stuff in his personal life with his mom. Rossi had some sweet moments there at the end, but for the most part was just kind of his own kind of sad, obsessed life at times. I don't even remember much with Tara. I remember she had a husband that they ended up splitting at some point, but I don't really remember. Simmons, I remember he had a wife. They were having a kid. That's all I really remember of that. Prentice, I remember she had the guy that she was starting to talk to at the end. Did we ever find out what happened with them, by the way? Is he even a part of this show? I don't know. I haven't seen, or I don't really remember what happened with him at the end, and we've not seen him show up, so I don't know what's going on there. And then Garcia just kind of, you know, she had the one guy she was dating that tried to kill her. That's most of what I remember with her, outside of her flirting with Derek Morgan. So yeah, the side stuff, the character stuff, it's there most of the time, and that's kind of what it is here. You know, they do have, I think, maybe a little bit more time. They do have, it looks like, a few more minutes to work with than they normally did, because normally it was just about 40 minutes or a little bit over. Here it looks like they've got closer to 50 minutes. So with that little bit of extra time, I think they're trying to maybe give these characters a little bit more, a little bit deeper stories, and try to actually grow them and grow their relationships and such. And on top of that, I think because they're more focused in on this one overarching narrative, they don't have to spend as much time building up an unsub. Because that was a large chunk of most episodes, was you had to see what the unsub was doing, we had to learn about them, we had to get their motive, we had to get why they were doing what they were doing, their MO, and that takes up a lot of time. So they didn't have a whole lot of time to spend on the characters and the personal stuff going on. So I think with the fact that we don't have to spend as much time building up unsubs in this, we're more focused in on one story, and we do have a little bit more time in each episode. I think they are trying to use that effectively and trying to get us to care about this team, which I think the original show did fine. I'm not saying that I didn't care about the team in the original show. It just did feel like that stuff was more kind of on the side stuff that if they had time, they would talk about it. It didn't feel as much of a priority. In this, it feels like it's just as important as what they're trying to do as well. And I do kind of like that. I do kind of like the fact that we are giving time to let these characters be real people and show what they're going through outside of work. So yeah, that's a long way to say that so far I'm really liking it. Outside of the bureaucrat stuff, it's good so far, and I'm really enjoying seeing what they're doing. I guess the only thing outside of the bureaucratic stuff, I'm not a big fan of what they're doing with the dog, with Moose. Just not a fan of dog abuse. I'm hoping, I'm gonna believe that they just train the dog really well to look that vicious and mean, and he's not. Because I'm not gonna lie, watching him, it certainly seemed like they did some awful stuff to get him to get those reactions. But who knows? Maybe he's just a great actor. But yeah, I'm just not a fan of anything to do with dogs being abused or used in this way. It's just not my favorite type of story. But yeah, overall, I'm having a great time. So that being said, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these first 3 episodes? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Criminal Minds reviews, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Till then, I hope you have a great day. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.